what Vince has got to say. I'm interested in Vince's opinion. So we're now going to have Mr. Cawthron on the show, which is an honour. Vince, how are you, sir?
Good evening to you, David. Good evening to you, Carl.
Yeah, good evening, Vince. How are you doing tonight? That's right.
A couple of things before we get in conversation. One, in principle, I agree with David, the independent for pool, and obviously in the respects of Brexit, because I'm an avid, devout Brexiteer, will be forever. I will take you up on that bet, because I'm an optimist with Hartlepool. David, all right?
Okay.
And we can discuss that on air or off air, but yeah, I'm happy to part with a few pounds from my pocket or your pocket, depending which one wins. All right,
Vince, we'll go for £20. How does that sound? Because I'm encouraging my conviction. £20 to £20 to charity of our choices. How does that sound?
Absolutely, it's far better to go to a worthwhile cause than to your wallet or my wallet. All right.
Very true. Very true. Very true.
So, right.
What's your opinions, Vince? Death penalty. Do you believe in the death penalty?
Of course I do. And as Carl, that young man Carl, with a much older...
We're going to gag up on you, David.
Than his years on the earth appertain to. So he's learnt a lot in the few years he's been on this planet. And I respect that opinion. Yes, the death penalty needs to be there in certain circumstances. Okay? And the fundamental to that is where there is irrefutable proof, completely non-deniable proof, that a person has committed and intentionally committed murder, be it of one or many people. Okay? And I know in the past that people have been hung, etc., under our law and found to have been not guilty of the offence that they've been committed to be hung for. But in a circumstance like at the weekend, if we believe what has happened over the weekend in London, therefore, irrefutably, through a court of law, I think there would be no question that man went out to kill and did kill people and maim people. Therefore, I would be quite happy myself to be involved with the process of hanging that man from a rope until he's dead. All right?
But here's my argument against that. Would being alive in solitary confinement, having all your dignity stripped from you, would that not be a tougher punishment for these people than just ending it for them? You know, that's my only take on it.
I don't look at it from that perspective, David. All right. Firstly, to lock somebody away, solitary or not, etc., number of years or not, etc., okay, is a cost to society for a start. That's a cost to you and I and every taxpayer. Okay, and there's always the question mark about that individual when they come out, be it on early release, as the example of this guy. I know he came out on early release, not from murder, but anyway, early release, even from the life sentence. Right, you can come out after 8 to 12 years after murder. You come out. Does that mean that you're not fully committed to do it again in exceptional circumstances? If you're indoctrinated, if I kill somebody, right, in a fit of anger, and I'm deemed and found guilty of murder, right, that is different to somebody who is totally indoctrinated. Because if I was going to kill somebody, I'd do it either in defense or defend somebody else. But if I was found guilty of murder, it wouldn't be because I was indoctrinated to do it. I'd be doing it in the fit of the moment because of the circumstances. That's different to indoctrination. He is indoctrinated, and many of them are. We don't know the actual figures, but let's take the figures on the media. 72, so-called. There was hundreds and thousands a year ago that they suspected of being terrorists, if you like, the word terrorist. But the word terrorist, anyway, is a misused word. I could go into the misuse of that word, but anyway, individuals like him who are indoctrinated into a belief that is not compatible with the way you are and the rest of us live in the Western world, he will never, ever, ever be willing to go through, if you like, the system in a prison where they try to rehabilitate. You can't rehabilitate somebody who's indoctrinated to that degree. I'll stop transmitting.
No, I think that is right, Vince. But what I'm saying is that at the most recent estimates, there are 23,000 active jihadists in the United Kingdom, and there are 74 terrorists who have been released early. What do we do with the 74 who have been released early and the 23,000 who pose a clear and present danger to the people of the UK? Vince, you first and then Carol.
Right, we changed the laws, the current judicial laws, okay, so that those that are still incarcerated do not come out on early rehabilitation into the community. And those that are, whatever thousands there are, that are suspected of planning terrorist type activities, they need to obviously be watched and monitored a lot more closely and found if they are, for example, not UK citizens, then send them on a one-way ticket to somewhere else. If they are UK citizens, then obviously we have the responsibility to monitor them very closely in all respects to ensure they don't endanger fellow citizens of the United Kingdom.
Carol?
Yeah, I'm pretty much in agreement with Vince there. You know, when people who are convicted of any crime, not just terrorism, but especially terrorism, are found to not be indigenous of the United Kingdom, I think they should be sent back to their homelands. I think that's the only appropriate course of action. They shouldn't be a cost or a burden to the British taxpayer, and we certainly should not have to, deal with this issue. For people who have already been convicted and are in prison for people who have been released early from prison, again, I think, where was, the police? Why weren't they monitoring this guy all the time? It was on a tag, yes, I know that, but tags don't monitor where you are. Tags only monitor a specific radius of that person's house and lets the police and G4S in most circumstances know when the person actually leaves the house rather than whereabouts in the world they are. I think we need GPS trackers on these kind of terrorists to know exactly where they are, and I understand that this guy was attending some sort of routine meeting, but this was in the city centre of London.
It was a meeting organised by the University of Cambridge about prisoner rehabilitation.
Yeah.
And this was the whole point of the stream, and about liberalism. These do-gooders, these university types, think that, oh, well, actually, they have the same values as we do. They just need to be treated a bit better. And look at what's happened. And my argument here is that the disease is liberalism. It is people with what amounts to white guilt. It is the establishment, and radical Islamic terrorism is just a symptom of that disease.
I think, David, before anything really changes, is we need to stop protecting the ones that are actually attacking us and start protecting the citizens again. Because right now, what's happened in effect is these wishy-washy liberal laws that were set up probably with good intentions are actually being used against us and being used by terrorists and their lawyers to get ways out of prison. This guy was released from prison early, presumably because, from what I've seen anyway in the transcripts of the court case, was his lawyer or his QC says that he was
Too young.
his sentence shouldn't be so tough because it's so
Yeah.
young. I mean, what a farcical reason.
Well-
I don't care if you're 16 years old or 65. If you go out and blow innocent people up, then you should be dealt with accordingly.
Well, he was wanting. He was part of a plot to blow up the London Stock Exchange.
Yeah,
Vince, what was your take
Can we
on
get
that?
it's crazy.
These people were trying
Yeah.
to help rehabilitate criminals, and they ended up being murdered by one of the people they tried to rehabilitate.
Yeah, I would appreciate to spend the few minutes I've got left with your good self on air to actually focus now on liberalism, okay, which was the subject heading of your
Yep.
of your initial show tonight, because what we've discussed there is the abuse of liberalism, as far as I'm concerned. All right. Now, let me very quickly say this: liberalism is something that we have to experience every day of our walking lives. Unfortunately, in the Western world, especially, didn't exist in totalitarian or dictatorship countries around the world. It exists in the Western world, and it wasn't there in the 1980s to the same level of proliferation that we have now. So it's the Western world that have created this monster term liberalism and its impact on the advanced Western world. When I mean advanced Western world, I'm not putting down China or India or Australia. No. I'm talking about the advanced civilization in the world. Okay. So liberalism is our own, I wouldn't say invented, but created enemy. And those that can see that, they use liberalism for their advantage. Okay.
right.
And far too many politicians, far too many people in our high levels of establishment get on this bandwagon of liberalism, okay, possibly to their own selfish advantage, but anyway, get on the bandwagon, and we're all supposed to follow and prescribe and adhere to the wonderful theory, if you like, of liberalism. Now, liberalism in the Western world, as you can see it, and I would use the term political correctness, has brought this about tremendously over the last 20 years. Freedom of speech, right? Condonment of freedom of speech. That is completely against liberalism in the context of it.
Yeah.
Let me just explain very quickly about liberalism. There's a gentleman, he's 89, a fair bit older than I am, Thomas Sowell. People won't recognize the name, but anyway, he's an economist and a philosopher in the States. And he did a quote about liberalism. And let me read the quote out. Liberals seem to assume that if you don't believe in their particular political solutions, then you don't really care about the people that they claim to want to help. Think about those words, the people that's listening, all right? Let me go into liberalism a little bit, the ism bit of it, all right? Ism is joined onto many different words: capitalism, communism, totalitarianism, dictatorism, okay? Islamism, all right? Ism, in a dictionary context, is those that believe in the same thing or want the same thing. That's the ism bit that's tied on to the end of these words. Let me go into a little bit about the fundamentals of the word liberty. And in the French Revolution, we're taught this at school. Some of us might remember this: liberty, equality, and fraternity in English words. All right. Liberty, the state of being free within a society from oppressive restrictions imposed upon by authority in one's way of life, or behavior, or political views. So it sounds good, the word liberty, but it can be abused and is being abused to the advantage of those that know they can take advantage of it. And him in London took advantage of it clearly, and so many do others, and so many do others under the word Islamism. Okay,
Vince,
equality.
let me throw a curveball at you. Is it not, and David as well, I suppose, considering the name of tonight's show, is it not the problem that liberalism in its original or vanilla state isn't actually that much of a problem, but what it's evolved into, this, cultural Marxist kind of liberalism, is the real problem? Because I have no issues with, like David often mentions, classical liberals like Tony Benn, etc. But when you move on to what we have now, the Conservative and the Labour Party and SNP in Scotland are not liberal in my opinion, but they're cultural Marxists, where they're destroying the very foundations of our actual society.
Well, you're absolutely right. That's why I said to you that the word liberal, or the word liberalism, which is a plural, all right, in many contexts, is abused within the Western establishment and views that are against the Western establishment. Yes, it's used for political gain, very much so. And Joe Swinson's a good example of that. And let's leave that to another bloody show, shall we? Not Joe Swinson. But anyway, Liberal Party, Liberal Democratic Party. But the word liberal or liberty is very good fundamentally for society. All right? In its concept. Liberty means a universal symbol of freedom. It's an emblem of friendship between people. Those sound very nice. Brilliant. And if that could be practiced in its fundamental meaning and definition, it would be wonderful. But it's not. It's abused by politicals. It's abused by people of an ilk that we don't like, and they don't like us. You see what I'm saying? So that's the problem. And we have to identify the root cause of the problem of the abuse of the word liberty, all right, to address the scale of the problem and to address how we can resolve the problem in all aspects of where it is abused, as I've just described.
Vince, I think that's right. Liberty, freedom, these are good things. The reason I use the term liberalism is I do believe that the modern left, let's put it this way: communism wasn't exactly a liberal system, but with people like Shami Chakrabarti, Jeremy Corbyn, I suppose his underlying opinion, based on a Marxist world outlook, is that all crime, all badness is as a result of income inequality, as a result of capitalism. That's a Marxist point of view. And we know that is just simply not the case. There are bad people in the world. So the issue comes from Corbyn and his worldview and the rest of the Labour Party's worldview. Do they not realise that these Islamist radicals were the ones that the Soviet Union went to war with in Afghanistan? They were hardly the friends of communism. But why is the Labour Party, the party of the left, why has it got a fetish for radical Islam now?
Oh, good question. And my simple short answer to that is for votes. He seeks votes from communities that are less likely to think as individuals. So let's take Islam, all right? He will actively chase the Muslim fraternity, if you like, those, whether they are Advent strong Islamists or whether they don't practice the religion of Islam on a daily basis, but describe themselves as Muslims. He will go for those sort of people because he sees them as an easy catchment area of voters. And we've seen some of that on the media lately, all right? Some of the mosque leaders are saying, you must vote this way, that way.
Yep.
They're not going to vote Conservative. I don't think that. They're not going to vote Liberal, so they're more likely going to vote for Labour. And he knows this. He will always go for the underdog. He's got a history of going for the underdog. All right? I sent something to you earlier on, and you had it on there. 100 reasons why Corbyn shouldn't be in number 10, for example.
I've got that up. I'm going to look at that later.
I haven't gone through the 100 review-wise, because you know what I'm like for reviewing and checking everything as factual. But I've gone through about 40 to 50 of them. And yes, I've got evidence that everything, those 40 or 50 are factual. Anyway, is renowned for backing what we call the underdog, or the enemy, if you like, IRA or Hezbollah or Hamas, and you name it. All right? Because he sees that as a catchment area, getting people who will rally to his support, whereas the people who are streetwise, let's put that term, those of us that are awake, and you start getting that through a good education. I don't mean a degree education. I mean going to school and get educated, not indoctrinated. So you get that through education and through parents who inform you as well, who are aware. But those that aren't aware as individual thinkers, and the majority of these sort of people I've described are not individual thinkers. They are told what to think by those above them. Anyway, I'll leave it as that because I transmit too long at times.
No. It's
No, not at all.
It's very, very interesting, Vince, and it's always good to have you on the show. Vince, now obviously, what do you think? You're going to be on with us on the night of the election. How will you be voting on the day, Vince?
Right. I should be voting because of my constituency, and I am a tactical type person when I come to putting my cross in the box. I will either be voting Conservative or Brexit Party. I'm not a member of any political party, never have been. But in my constituency, Conservatives are about 11,000 behind Labour, and Labour has been in my constituency since the Stone Age, let me put it that way. Brexit Party are running, but it looks like possibly I'll probably vote Conservative because they probably have the most chance of trying to oust out the Labour MP in our constituency. Brexit Party have never run before. If they're able to gain the UKIP voters from 2017, they might come out with 5,000 or 6,000. So therefore, they would have to win at least half of Labour's majority, which is half of Labour's votes, which was 21,000. They'd have to win half of them, plus the UKIP ones, to stand a chance of taking the seat in my constituency instead of Conservative. You see what I'm saying?
Yep, I think that's fair. And Vince, in the long term, do you think the Western world is headed for not necessarily collapse, but is it sustainable the way we're going?
Depends what you mean by sustainable. Well, it's sustainably politically, economically, or society as such, where we hope we can step outside our front door and not have to be afraid and looking at everybody willing to want to kill us. It depends in what aspect. There's three different aspects there: law and order, economy, and politically.
All three? What's your opinion on all three?
Well, politically, I am a person that I don't believe in political parties. Mm-hmm. We've had two-party system in most respects since the end of the First World War. Before the First World War, it was Tory, which is Conservative, and would you believe Liberals? But Tories were mostly in governance before the First World War. But Liberals were their main opponents. Labour sprung up after the First World War, and since then, we've had Conservative Labour with the occasionally amalgamation of a smaller party like the Liberals, Labour, Con Lib, that sort of stuff. So we have a two-party system, and that two-party system does not benefit the average person in the street. But we are indoctrinated to a degree over the generations. You either vote Tory or you vote Labour. My dad did, my granddad did, and all this sort of hoorah. That to me is not democracy. that is a form of dictatorship hiding behind a veil of democracy. So I'd like to do away with all political parties totally, and have people run for member of Parliament, member of the House of Lords, bear that in mind, run for the House of Lords, not be appointed, on their individual merit. All right? No political party allegiance or loyalty. You approach the people, can be a number of candidates, you all go on an independent banner, okay? Fund yourself the 500 quid if you want to go that way, or that, etc. So that maybe government should give funding for publicity and media coverage, because that can't be afforded by the individual. But anyway, but everybody run that way, okay? And an oath to be taken by the prospective parliamentary candidate once they have win the election, an oath to be taken by all of them running for it, that if they win it, their loyalty would be to the people that have elected them.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the case at the moment. And I would want a system where if the people, 52%, 52% of the people in that constituency felt that that person who's in Parliament representing them is not doing the job for the constituency, then ousted and another election in that constituency. Won't happen in my lifetime, I don't think.
Socially, Vince, we'll end on socially. What do you think is going to happen socially in the UK and in the Western world? Do you think things will continue to deteriorate?
Yeah, definitely the situation will deteriorate because it doesn't matter who's in number 10, they will only play lip service to the problems, to the demise of our democracy and the demise of law and order in the country. I think, probably before I die, if a government does not grasp this problem and completely erode the problems in society, and that means the poverty angle, it means the growth of another religious sect, if you like, becoming more predominant in areas of the country at local politics level, for example, we will end up with civil uprising. We will end up with a civil war type scenario. That's on the social side, yeah? On the economic side, our economy will go down and down if we don't get out of this EU dictatorship. Mm-hmm. The EU, I believe the euro will collapse in the next 5 to 10 years. It's been held up falsely now. It can't be held up falsely forever. The banking fraternity across the world will not keep holding it up. So the euro will collapse. Let's get out of it before it does collapse. And we will have to face the consequences of that. But as a member of the EU, it would be a far more bigger consequence than if we're out of it. There you are.
Carol, have you got any closing remarks for Vince at all? Anything you'd like to say to Vince?
Just as always, thank you for gracing us with your wisdom, Vince. It's always very interesting to hear what you have to say and your analysis of the situations that are going on. So thank you for being a friend of the show and coming on.
Thanks, Vince. We'll see you on election night. Okay.
Yeah, thanks, gentlemen. Very enjoyable. Thank you both.
Bye-bye.
Take care, Vince. Thank you very much. Well, that was interesting.
People who said, you look at Northern Ireland, people said that you wouldn't get into... I'm not so sure that there would be a civil war side of things. I don't see that side of it, but I do definitely see massive civil breakdown, I think would be fairer to put it. I think we'll see more of these lone wolf stabbings. I think we'll see crime coming even more.
Well, this country's incapable of civil war at the moment, because for a civil war in this day and age you need an armed populace, and the population are not armed because the mass majority of firearms were took away from the population or handed
not a
to
good thing?
The police. Well, in terms of stopping a civil war, yes. If that is your goal, But you could also argue it's a bad thing, because then the people that wanted to start the Civil War could get a hold of the weapons illegally, and it leaves the legal citizens defenseless. So
Yeah,
it
but
depends what way you see it.
yeah, but this whole, I mean, there was people talking. There's no way.
People have been saying no be civil wars literally
No, but
since like the 1900s, and it's not happened yet.
but there's no way gun ownership is coming into the United Kingdom. No chance whatsoever.
No. Who thinks that? No. Who said that, David? That just sounds like I am someone who probably supports gun ownership, and I don't see it ever happening.
No, it's
Ever.
not.
And that's because the majority of the British population think that it's a bad idea.
That's right.
That's
Most people
that's
do
just
think
their
that's
view.
what,
And I'm willing to accept the majority's opinion in this
but
circumstance. I
what
might
I
not
would
agree,
say,
but
what I would say is that in terms of the situation, I think there would have to be significant social upheaval in terms of economic issues. But people are getting angry. It depends on whether there's more of these attacks. It depends on whether, mass immigration continues. Who knows? Let's listen to what Boris